Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode where we have the privilege of speaking with Loch Kelly, a pioneering voice in mindfulness and consciousness studies. Loch is the founder of the Effortless Mindfulness Institute and author of The Way of Effortless Mindfulness. With over 3 decades of experience bringing Eastern wisdom and Western philosophy, he's collaborated with neuroscientists at Yale and UPenn and NYU, and he's just done so much to enhance the compassion and well-being in various fields. So today we're going to explore his unique approach to mindfulness that promises to make the profound and spiritual insights accessible to everyone in our modern day world. And without further ado, here is Loch Kelly. Welcome.
Thank you, Danielle. Great to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too. I was looking all into your materials and everything. And, the first thing here that I did is I went ahead and I downloaded your app.
Nice. That's the best way, because it's really, you can only say so much about that which is beyond words. And then you have to try to experience it.
Yeah, I mean, for all of our listeners right now, it's called Glimpses when you have it on your screen, but I believe it's called Mindfulness. You actually search it on the App Store, is that correct?
Well, it's actually called Mindful Glimpses.
Mindful Glimpses, that's correct, right? So when you search it, everybody, that's how you can find it. And yeah, I mean, I've just been dabbling with it for a little bit here, but it offers a lot of unique features. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, okay, so first off, all of our listeners here today are people who want to write books.
Okay.
And they have ideas for, so many different topics. Sometimes they get the book written, sometimes looking for inspiration. Yeah. Sometimes they're people who have that book and don't know the next step. And so that's why I was so interested in your app, because that was kind of another step you took once you kind of got your ideas out there. So tell us a little bit about that. How did you decide to branch out, take that step? It couldn't have been an easy journey.
No, give you the short version as much as I can. So, just kind of growing up, really not having, a background so much in philosophy or religion or consciousness, just kind of living in New Jersey and going to college. But I had certain experiences, and it led me to do a graduate degree and then a fellowship to Sri Lanka, India, Nepal. And so as soon as I had that experience, I was fortunate enough to go up after doing traditional mindfulness, or in Theravada Buddhism, which is often called insight meditation. I went up and ended up in Nepal and met a Tibetan teacher who within 5 minutes gave me what are called pointing out instructions, which I can explain a little bit, which is basically just shifting your awareness intentionally in the now to move out of the center of your kind of chattering mind and into a more open and embodied and interconnected sense of well-being that almost all of us have experienced. And I couldn't believe it that within 5 minutes, I was experiencing what I had experienced after a 10-day retreat in meditation, and except my eyes were open and I was laughing and felt embodied and calm and clear. So I just thought at that time, being 25 years old, I think this is what I'll do with my life. And that led me to a long journey of trying to translate it, because it's so unique in some ways that I had to figure out how to make it a more modern, contemporary, approachable, almost elegant but simple thing, which I'm sure a lot of authors are trying to do. How do you communicate something that's so valuable?
Yeah, no, so I like the way that you were able to do that, because it probably took just a lot of time, trial and error. I mean, you told me in an email, actually, it took you 9 years to do that first book, but then somehow only 9 months for the second.
Yes.
So, what was the difference? Did you just already have like, you finally found that way to deliver the message, or was there like another strategy you used that helped to streamline the
Yeah.
process?
I mean, the amazing thing is the message of the book became accessible to me, and I was able to use what we'll talk about a little bit more, what this kind of effortless mindfulness style is, which is tapping in to kind of an already open wisdom and trust, and kind of getting beyond the internal editor initially and letting something flow in a very clear way, often the way I would be able to kind of stand up and speak, and very clearly when I had shifted into this effortless mindfulness. Things would just kind of roll out, and they'd be in paragraphs and sentences, and I'd be like, wow, that was pretty cool. And so I was able to learn how to write by doing the meditation that I was writing about.
Wow, you were able to connect all that and making it part of your writing process then.
Yes.
You're not only embodying it in every other aspect of your life, but it helped you bring it all into paper. So that's something we actually talk about a lot on this podcast, because whenever it comes to writing, everybody could relate. Writer's block's a real thing. Sometimes you don't know how to put the words onto paper, but mindfulness and meditation, I can see now how by like clearing your brain of anything else that might be distracting you or lingering in your mind helps you focus and helps those creative ideas come out. Yeah, so I mean, tell me a little bit about that process. Like when you sat down and to that effortless mindfulness, I'm guessing for you it must be kind of effortless.
Yeah. I
Or does
mean,
it take a little bit of time to kind of ease
yeah,
into?
it takes some time to shift into it. So the word effortless is sometimes misunderstood as if it takes no effort, or in some ways it's simpler, but the word effortless actually is describing the kind of awareness that you shift into that's already effortlessly aware, similar to what people talk about in sports or in music as like being in the zone or being in flow consciousness. So what that means is your eyes are open, you're doing an activity, you're not actually meditating with eyes closed in a place that's quiet and kind of away from everything. You can just literally have your awareness kind of shift and either drop to seeing and hearing, and then kind of drop below your neck into your body and kind of open up into the room and feel like you're also aware outside and within, and then start to kind of trust that you can walk and talk and create and relate. And this is pretty much what athletes and musicians talk about happens when they do their craft, when they do their creative work. But what I found is, well, why not do it intentionally first and then do the craft? And so that's what I would do. I'd literally open my awareness around almost like a panoramic way, and then drop into my body, and then trust that I just think of the theme, and having read and prepared and almost having too much to say, I was able to kind of say, okay, so let's start with this and just trust that it's all within me, and here it comes out. And sometimes I would type, sometimes I actually did a recording, but I wouldn't just kind of freeform it. I would really almost think, okay, chapter 1, first paragraph, here's the theme. Okay, let's go. And then actually sometimes I actually had an assistant who would type as I talked to him or her. So I had like 2 different assistants, and they would type and I would just talk, and then I would see it appear on the screen, and then we'd take a break and then come back and edit later.
Okay, I mean, for so many things to go from there. First off, it's always really important to have a team like that by you. I'm sure like after you were able to unload your ideas and thoughts to them, they gave you some feedback, maybe sparked some more ideas, some more inspiration. So, I mean, it's always great to have a collaborative process like that. Just to have somebody listening in and offering guidance as you go. And I mean, that's actually like a luxury like not a lot of people might have, because you were able to kind of sit back and close your eyes and just let those ideas flow. I mean, We do that all the time at authors. I'm with my clients. I hop on a Zoom call with them, and they'll do
Mhm.
very similar things. They'll just close their eyes, and it's actually funny. One of my clients calls me like his therapist because he'll just kind of like show me his ideas, but it's kind of the same thing. And it's important that you not only are speaking out loud to your team, but also you're in the zone. You've gone through the whole process of inward to outward, like you just explained.
Mhm.
Um, that's like a really good technique that I think a lot of our listeners could benefit from today because, to all of our busy entrepreneurs out there listening today, I mean, what time do you have to actually, hone your mind in and focus on something that you're enjoying and wanting to do and, sparking your creative energy? Block just showed us an amazing way to do it and relatively quickly too.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I was looking at your app, for example, you have a whole section like mindful flow at work, for example, which is just like kind of just like I'm assuming exactly what you just said, just
Yeah.
guiding you into that process.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's the idea is that the kind of mindfulness often people, start with kind of watching their breath or using a word like a mantra, or they look at an object like a candle. And it's kind of a closed down, calming practice. And then they do kind of a mindfulness of thoughts and feelings. So this is actually traditionally the next stage where you kind of open your awareness back to kind of see who's looking or where am I aware from that's already effortlessly aware and embodied. And, in terms of communication or writing, it's really that you're usually writing when you actually know the material. You're already the expert, and it's just a matter of how do you organize it. And this ability to kind of go into a flow consciousness that is organized already in a way that is so clear and fun. It's kind of enjoyable, and then you're not engaging the editor. In fact, I use some of the psychological work that I work with called internal family systems, which is called IFS, which is a way of just treating your personality like different parts of you. So, instead of saying, oh, as soon as you feel like, oh, I'm anxious about this, I have anxious about writing, you say, okay, well, wait a minute, is there a part of me that's anxious? Oh, yeah. Where's that part? Oh, it's like here and here. All right, can you be aware of that part and thank it for being so excited and ask it for some space so you can be aware of it? Oh, yeah. So now you're
yeah.
aware. And now, are there other parts that aren't anxious? Yes. And is there an editor part that wants to get in there? Oh, yeah, that one. Can you ask them all to just step back, and you'll be back when it's their turn, and they'll learn to just step back, and all of a sudden you're clear. And you're like, okay, so now the subject is, and then you kind of look at your outline or start it with like, here's the subject, here's the chapter title, here's the subsections. All right. So how do I start? And then just trust like someone in the flow or giving a speech. Like when you give a speech or something, you can't look at your notes really. You have to trust that it'll come out. So writing becomes a flow.
Understood. Yeah, and I like that concept, like talking to different versions of yourself, of your own emotions, and categorizing it in a way that, like, I am not this certain feeling I have right now. It's just a part of me.
Yeah.
I see where you're going with that, and it kind of gives you that control that a lot of people struggle with. I mean, I do angel writing, editing, blogging, podcasting, and there's so many different thought processes that go into all of this. So sometimes you need to be able to talk to your emotions and different sides of you to compartmentalize that. So I like that tip a lot. Another great thing that our listeners can take home with them today, especially if you're going from writing to work to home with the family. I mean, it
Yes.
probably applies in many different aspects.
That's right. Yeah,
Um,
you can really start to, because you're not denying it, you're not belittling it, you're actually thanking it for, thank you, editor, for wanting to get involved. But, I need you, you're part of the team, but not now. Well, how about you go relax and I'll call on you later. And it's just amazing that when you realize that there are these different parts, just like you say, there's a part that comes home with the family, there's a part that goes to work, there's a part that writes, there's a part that, so it's all you, but it's almost like what Jung called personas or masks or hats that you put on. And if you can ask that hat, take off that hat, editor hat, and do the, creative flow hat, then you start to really trust that you can get that first draft done. And, at work, whatever you're doing, you can kind of even feel emotionally ready to go into a meeting and feel like there's an anxious part and just say, okay, where is it? Ask it to step back, take a breath, and then, okay, here we go. And then go in and start with the first sentence.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's funny. I'm thinking about that, and I just imagine you having like a whole rack of hats now by your computer. Like, oh, let me swap my hat out today. But it's just like metaphorical thinking. But
Yeah.
no, it's very important to be able to do that and to really be intentional with your writing process. Sometimes I'll sit down and I feel like I have such a good creative flow going, and I'm typing and I'm typing, and then hours later I look, I'm like, wait, how has it been only a page? Right? But I see what you mean. Like, that editor side of me was working alongside the creative side, and I was going as I was editing. There's a big benefit in just, writing first, editing later, just like Hemingway said. Like, we all know that famous quote. But that's a great tip. Again, a lot of our listeners can definitely benefit.
And another tip of reason why it took me longer is because I didn't recognize all the parts of me. And one of the parts of me has what's probably called ADHD, or is neurodivergent. In other words, I can remember when I was a kid, first grade, sixth grade, I'd reach, they'd give these colored levels, reading groups, and I'd be like, well, I understand all this stuff. Why is it taking me so long to go from, understanding it to putting it on paper? And all these other kids are just going, da-da-da-da-da-da, and I've got this gap.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I am, never thinking I would write a book, but I had to kind of almost find this, first grader who was like, well, don't I have to write this book? And say, no, you don't have to write the book. You can go play. There is this creative urge in me that is really creative. Maybe sometimes they say even people with ADHD are even more creative. So this effortless mindfulness, it has what's called effortless focus. So rather than trying to make your mind focus on your breath or train it to have more attention from this moving mind, which won't stand still, and these different parts, you actually either drop into your kind of body and your heart space and open up, or you open up into this kind of awareness-based, spacious and pervasive awareness-based mind that's not thought-based. It's just alert. And then your mind within that is moving, but you're kind of focusing around it and through it from your flow mind, from your awake consciousness. And you're able to focus, or I'm able to focus on the task, and my mind is still going like this, but I'm not focusing from the mind. I'm not trying to make it focus, and I'm just allowing it to be like a sensation in, my left foot. So, people have sensation in their left foot. It can even be a little uncomfortable. You can still concentrate or do some task. It's like, okay, so don't be in the thinking mind. Trust the thinking mind is poured back in like programs of a computer, but the one who is writing is this awake consciousness. So that's kind of this premise from this wisdom tradition, is that kind of true self or awake consciousness is already inherent within us, all of us, equally. And that if we can shift into that consciousness, we don't have to keep fighting with our minds and our getting overtaken by writer's block or parts of us. There's the writer's block part. Can you step back and let me focus from this always already calm, focused dimension that most people never even know about, except when they do the things they love, like, whatever you love to do in your free time, like dance or go walk in nature, play with animals, do a sport, play music. Then you go into that connection and openness and focus. But what if you could do that through learning, through using an app, these ways to literally navigate your own consciousness out of that habit of trying to fix the mind and focus it and make it do stuff from this small ego center? What if you could open out of the ego center, and then you're not getting rid of the ego, you just realize, oh, that's just a part of me. I'll need that later when I have to remember my phone number.
Understood. Yeah. I mean, so when I was thinking about what you said about, the concept of being, awake in the mindset, there's something you mentioned in your bio, actually. You called the concept of waking in. I wonder, is that relevant and related to what you mentioned in your bio? Or is that maybe perhaps another? Tell me a little bit more about that. The role of embodiment and how it plays with waking in. That's something you mentioned to me in the material. So let me know a little bit about that.
I mean, this is the thing, is that, I don't know how many people, have this is kind of the wisdom traditions of a lot of the Eastern meditative traditions that we know are from kind of yoga, which is very kind of more hatha yoga, body-based. And then people learn mindfulness, which they're focusing on their breath. But the traditions are about this next stage of development, which is kind of living from what's called awakening or awake consciousness, which is often discovered first by being more open or more spacious or more, becoming aware of pure awareness that's silent and timeless, often on a, in a meditation, but, you walk to the top of a mountain, you look off into space and you just kind of relax and feel, So then that's kind of called waking up from. And some people stop there. They just kind of like space out, or they just find this, but then as soon as they come back, they're like, okay, my ego's a little calmer. So now I'll just meditate and then I'll come back. So the waking up, and then to this kind of awareness-based knowing, this awareness-based sense of who I am that isn't anxious, that isn't never been worried, that isn't even sleepy, but is here and is essentially one dimension of me. That then, if that remains primary, now there's kind of a waking up from that chattering mind center, ego center, to this awareness. Now the awareness is also kind of not separate from your body. So there's kind of like, oh, we're both here. So there's pleasant and unpleasant feelings. There's these parts running around, but they're all appearing to this embodied rather than kind of a detached witness or meditator. There's a waking in, and then the waking out is from there starting to be creative, relational, creative, and be able to talk and walk and live from this. Really is almost like a next developmental stage of adulthood, rather than, a baby who doesn't know how to talk, and then you have to go to school age, and then you become this thought-based, achiever. And now you kind of go to this, happy, embodied, flowing, creative person who can respond rather than react from a small sense of self that's always trying to protect itself. And you, from this waking up and waking in, you can feel those parts of you. Oh no, what are those people thinking of me? Like, okay, sweetheart, it's okay. So you have this kind of loving consciousness. It's not just pure consciousness. So this is the model that is really possible, that it's not something you need to believe. It's a type of meditative consciousness that seems to be available more and more now to people, and people kind of spontaneously find it, but they don't know what it is, so they don't know how to kind of return to it.
Right. So, I'm thinking this whole time, I'm like, this sounds great. This sounds like ideal way to live, to write, to work. And I even said that myself. I'm like, this is a great tip. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, if I were to actually try to do what you're doing, Loch, could I actually address my own emotions and parts of myself just like that, So I'm wondering, like, within your book or within your teachings, I'm sure you have skeptics. Like, what if it's not as effortless to somebody as it might be for other people? I mean, what kind of tips would you say to like help them or challenge that kind of thinking? What would you say?
Yeah. I mean, there's always doubts and there's always types of, practices, whether it's meditation or learning to play an instrument, or some people are good at it, some people are not. Some people, it's just not going to be a right match. But the first thing is to see whether you can get what I call a glimpse. That's why I called it mindful glimpse, because it is just a shift of consciousness that within the series, particularly that Mindful Glimpses app, there's a starter program that you can go through, and it has different doorways for different learning types, more kinesthetic door, more for emotional types if you're caught in emotion, or more thought-based ways to shift out, ways to drop in. And it's learning this that's new, that nobody knows how to do it until you try it. And it's not intellectually that, difficult. It's literally like a awareness yoga. Can you unhook your awareness and let it drop? So now you're aware of your jaw from your jaw. Now you're aware of your throat from within your throat. Now you drop into your body and you're aware of your body from your body. And now you open to the space in the room and then come back. And now feel like you're almost more aware from your heart space rather than your head space, and find this way of responding now from here. So it's just trying it. And that's why I created the app, because rather than reading about it, it took me so long to describe it. And then I realized that I was kind of creating these little glimpses, which are these little movements for different learners. Because if somebody couldn't get it, I thought, oh, well, this person's getting it, that person's getting it, but this person doesn't get it. Let me try a different doorway, like of the eyes. They don't like closing their eyes, so let them keep their eyes open. Try that. So it's really a kind of an amazing thing. It's called a direct practice tradition, and it's experiential, and by trying it, you'll find out if it's right for you.
Okay, so you kind of have to try it, dabble a little bit in it, try a couple different methods. I mean, like you mentioned, if you don't like your eyes closed, try it open. I can see how it takes a little bit of trial and error to kind of find the right, kind of like maybe testing the waters of a pool, like the best way to make it work for you. And this kind of just, now that you brought up the app again, what I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast is, because you made that app now, it makes your material more accessible to people. So anybody who might find it challenging can now go to your app, and they're still reading your content or listening to it in many cases, because a lot of it's video and just easy, like 14, 15-second clips to listen to. You made it accessible to your audience. You were able to take that and kind of, open the door for them a little bit. And that's something a lot of our authors struggle with.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I mean, and certainly the, culture, writing a book, I'm sure you have a lot of writers, but, an audio book, some people just, once you write a book, then doing the audio book. And I certainly recommend if your publisher will allow you to do it in your voice, because it just has so much more resonance. I have one of my books that was read by an actor and the other was read by me, and people immediately say, like, tell the difference. But that creative process and that impulse that authors have, there's something in me that I want to share with someone else. Let me find a way. And as you said, try to find others that can help you. Don't try to do it alone. A lot of it is your vision, your, unique creative spark that you're sharing, and that will have to take you in front of a blank piece of paper at some point. But finding little tips to help you birth it, to really bring it into the world, not perfectly, just as, as your expression, because, and to make it part of your, your growth process, and learn about yourself as you do it. That's why the learning of this Effortless Mindfulness, which includes internal family systems, just helped me in my entire life by facing this challenge of writing.
Understood. Yeah. And I mean, I love how, we keep going back to that idea of like, if you're stuck reaching out to your team, finding different methods. I mean, like I said, it applies to everything, particularly in writing. So, I also noticed that a lot of what you're saying isn't just kind of like, made up on your head because, you were in psychotherapy, you taught this kind of stuff, many different colleges. So like it's based in science and you've seen it and it's factual. And within your
Yeah.
book, I'm sure you have many case studies and, research to back it all up. So that's just another aspect of what makes your book so popular. It's just people know that it works too. You have credibility.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
that's right. Yeah, it's and then that's been the thing, is to bring this, these worlds together of kind of the world of science, but also the world of something beyond words that is creative and expressive and this awareness based, but the effects of the awareness, when you shift your awareness, then there are scientists that I've been actually a subject and helped develop protocols where they measure, using fMRIs and things like this that show your brain is balanced and that the centers for compassion light up, and this feeling of 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 clear difference that you're feeling is actually shown to be changes in your brain and changes in your physiology.
Yeah, and I wonder, was it challenging to you to kind of take both aspects, like the clinical and the spiritual, and mesh it? Did you find that as a challenge, or did it come naturally to you just based on your experiences?
I mean, it felt right, just kind of what
Felt
you're saying.
right.
I felt like if this is real, because I saw people go off in extremes in either case, people who are too rational and scientific and weren't open to any kind of creative, spiritual, contemplative things. And then people who were caught in more metaphysical, spiritual hope that, things would come into being. They weren't getting results. So bringing them together felt like, if this is real, it's got to be, even if it's not a machine, a scientific machine that measures it, there's got to be results. It's got to bring happiness. It's got to bring, even though there's something in the creative process that is like, Dante's journey, where you do go down and face the darkest struggles, within you. But when you realize those are parts of you and they're kind of being met, and that you keep showing up for yourself, sometimes slower than you want, there's a coming through on the other side where you feel stronger, more courageous, and there's this kind of meeting of this support that feels like the universe is supporting you.
Understood. Yeah, and I mean, I guess, throughout your path in your life, you probably feel that way too, because the universe kind of supported you, going from university to Nepal to, where you all are today. I mean, you got to have a little bit of faith in that and, structure it in your own way to kind of make it happen for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. And, one thing that I know you did is, you didn't just kind of dabble in like one aspect of all this either. You mentioned how, you learned one methodology from all this, but there's a couple of different that you also learned about as well. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've kind of looked at, it's one of the things I saw is like, oh, I see that all these traditions at a certain point are really trying to do the same thing. They're just
Yeah.
they're calling it different things.
And I have those names written, but I'm gonna butcher if I try to pronounce
Yeah.
them. One of them is like a
Dzogchen, yeah,
DZOG.
Dzogchen and
So
Mahamudra.
sorry, I'm like, I don't want to butcher this.
Right.
Go ahead
Yeah,
and
no, no.
let us.
Yeah, some Tibetan, some people know yoga and insight meditation, but then, or mindfulness, but then there's Zen, people know, but then there's these others called Mahamudra and Dzogchen, which are these other, kind of more advanced, but the amazing thing is that they're simpler. So my teacher my Tibetan teacher who showed me this in 5 minutes, how to shift my mind. He had done three-year retreats in the Tibetan tradition, which are very long, arduous, so that, has a big whole iconography of religion and deities and stuff like that. But it ends that the last year you're doing this simple practice. But what he realized when someone asked him, well, why are you teaching this just to anybody who's not doing all this preliminary meditation? He said, well, because when I was 15, my uncle gave me these same simple instructions, and it's no different now after three-year retreats than it was then. So the simplest traditions, the mechanism, so it's kind of learning, well, what is the mechanism of the mind, and what is this, that we kind of think, I think, therefore I am, and we keep staying at this level of trying to figure it out within our mind, whereas when we really feel our best, we kind of step out of our mind. We exercise, we walk, we create, we play music, we dance. So what we're doing is we're dropping into our body or into opening to the world or the universe in some ways, looking at the sky. And so if you can just do that with your awareness, you discover there's this clarity that is aware of thought and isn't thought-based, but is prior to thought. It can use thought, but it's not dominated by thought. And then it's beyond thought in that it's wisdom, and it has clarity and compassion naturally that is free of that back and forth sense of being small and separate. So that's the kind of the waking up to this awake consciousness that is embodied and interconnected with everyone else. Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a famous Zen teacher, called it interbeing. So you get this feeling of being, but it's interconnected with everyone else. And that feeling is essentially, the premise is that's here all the time within us, but it's just covered over by our other habits. And what if we could learn to kind of part the clouds and realize the sky is here?
I like that metaphor, parting the clouds and realizing the sky is here. I mean, a lot of times I feel like, especially with meditation, you're really thinking inside yourself and you're closed off. And whenever I picture somebody meditating, or whenever I've tried it myself, I'm alone, I'm sitting on my bed, But when you're thinking about how you are connected to others and you're parting the clouds, like you just said, I mean, you're right. It does open up a door, you know what I mean? It shows you're not alone. And, that's another reason why your app and your book is just, you're not only showing your ideas, but I feel like your readers in a way feel connected to other users and other people who are practicing and doing the same thing. Has somebody come to you with a story perhaps about how this has, impacted them in such a way that, they feel connected within themselves, within others? I mean, I'm sure you have plenty of stories.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that's the reason why I keep going, because literally now, because it's been so long, I mean, usually I say there's a lot of people, then I was like, there's hundreds, and now it's like, there's thousands, actually.
You probably have just a full email inbox.
They're just, just people who's just, my life has changed. And even, I have even on the app, and I have a podcast as well. And somebody who was a veteran in Iraq war, who had PTSD, just said, I'm going to give this to all my friends. It just is the only thing that's ever worked. I've spent 10 years in therapy and medication, and now I just did these practices, and it put me in touch with something that's greater than myself. That's essentially who I am, who I was before, and has the capacity to be with the parts of me that are shaking and still, feel traumatized sometimes, but it doesn't collapse me. It's given me access to myself.
That's, a beautiful way to say it. I mean, so many listeners right now are probably struggling with that same thing, and sometimes it just takes to hear, somebody else relate to you and offer guidance and say, I've been there, I've done that. And, here's exactly how to overcome it in my book. I mean, a lot of people are, searching for the same thing, and here you are, you provided it to so many people. I mean, that just must feel like so profound every day that you open that email inbox and just see the
Yeah.
notes flooding in like that. I mean, just another reason for any of our listeners who are considering writing a book. I mean, there's this aspect to years down the line from release, and here we go. Locke is just impacting people left and right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, considering all of this, I mean, then what's next for you? You've got your book out, you got the app. What are you doing right now? What's next on the horizon?
Yeah. So, so what I'm doing now is I'm doing actually kind of a training. So it's a 3-part effortless mindfulness training,
Mm.
and I've just doing three series. So I just finished the first one live, but it'll be available in the recorded. And so what I'm trying to do is give people the tools to do it by themselves. So I do fine tuning. I kind of teach the map, the method, and the markers, so you know how to do it. You know how to find. You know how to. What the obstacles are for you, and what the doorways are for you. And then the second level goes deeper and kind of allows you to kind of start to live it in the middle of your life practice. And then the third level, there's a certification for helping professionals and coaches and therapists and people who just want to teach some kind of meditation, so that they feel like they have the basics to share it with others. So I'm kind of trying to pass it on, but also gather a group of people that it resonates with, that I can really fine tune and help them live it.
Great. Yeah. So anybody who wants to partake in that, they can just head to your website and sign right up. Or is it ongoing, or is there only certain?
Yeah, no, it's ongoing, but you can kind of
Mhm.
catch up. That's the good thing.
Okay.
I know people are so busy that I kind of made the first section live, and now it's going to be an evergreen course that
I like that.
people
That's a
can
good
take.
strategy. People can take it when they're able to,
Yes.
put it into their schedule. You don't have to feel pressured to meet a certain deadline or a certain time. That's ideal,
Yeah.
especially in the way everybody lives these days. So that's an amazing way to make it accessible. Again, going back to that, just an expert thing that you've done in your career is
Yeah.
taking what you know,
Yeah.
allowing people to find the way that works best for them to
That's
put it
right.
into practice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, to all of our listeners right now, if you're inspired by the way that Locke was able to, hone in his focus, get his creativity out there on the pages, all these different methods, be it for writing or anything else in life, his workshops, his apps, his books, it all has a huge part to play. So check it out. I mean, we're going to put your links within within the podcast so everyone can take a look and click on it and research it. Where else can they find you though? I'm sure you have the social media, Instagram, all that.
Yeah, there's, I have, just as part of the outreach, just to kind of get the word out, I have the, Facebook, Instagram, podcast, app things, and just kind of enter the modern world. So people who are comfortable with one type of communication, and, the main thing is the website that has all that information of classes and the app and the podcasts and so it's just, and we're a nonprofit. So I know some people are like, well, you're doing all these things. What are you doing? Selling? I'm like, look, I'm not making any money. I'm
You're trying to help people. You're trying to share what you know with others. I mean, that's what
right.
it's all about,
Yeah, I'm making enough money to live a life of happiness and joy and share it with others, and let that creative, unique energy flow out and find avenues that it gets to people, and that people can respond to it, because some people like to read, so they're books, but some people are want to listen, they're auditory. And then I have a lot of free YouTubes, things like that. So I've over just having lived long enough, I have kind of made it available to many people in many different forms. So the website lochkelly.org is the
Yes.
place that has all the links.
Awesome. So you heard it right there, everybody. lochkelly.org. Check it out. It's where you can find all the information, all the materials. And you said something there that really kind of hit up a light bulb in my brain here because, there's something all the time that I have to say to my clients and to our audience is that, one great aspect of writing your book is that you can leverage it for more, return on your investment later on, the speaking gigs, the webinars, more bang for your buck after the fact that the book is published. But, in addition to that amazing, outcome, it's the legacy that you're leaving behind. And I mean, what you just said there, the fact that you don't even need any of that. You're trying to do it just to make sure that everybody can hear your message and you want them to benefit the same way that you have.
Yes.
That's just another whole avenue of why you should write your book now, right?
Yeah,
To get it
that's right.
out there, that legacy aspect.
Yeah, and you never know. That's the thing is you think like, oh, maybe people won't understand or won't get it. Well, some people won't, but there's some people out there that are like, oh my God, I can't believe I've been searching, I've been meditating in this 5 different forms for 20 years and then you just said it and I'm like, of course, that's it. Like it's so easy. Like, why did anyone tell me this? So somebody's waiting for, some connection, some spark to be passed on.
Definitely. And you never know who's going to receive that spark or when or, what moment in their life that it's going to actually touch. Like you can have somebody who's feeling like a failure at 10 a.m. or sorry, like 2 a.m. in the morning and they happen to open your app or open your book.
That's right.
And you never know, you never know what you don't know. But yeah, that's just another wonderful, aspect of wanting to write a book.
Yeah.
And as we start to come to a close today, Locke, I'm wondering, do you have any last words of advice for all of our aspiring authors out there who are inspired by you and want to write a book? What's another tip we can give them today? Aside from what we've already told them about, freeing your mind, focusing on it, finding a team. So any last piece of advice?
Yeah, I mean, there's something about that all the people like, as you mentioned, I've worked as a psychotherapist in like New York City, inpatient, outpatient, psychiatric clinic, and it's like I don't know why I'm thinking of it, but people who just keep showing up and finding, just keep showing up, put one foot in front of the other, trust that there is a process, that something that seems hard, there'll be, light at the end of the tunnel. Just keep doing your thing, take advice, try to find the best methods, but you're going to hit, life is a journey up and down, and that, that lessons are often blessings and obstacles are often doorways. So stay true to what you want to share and keep your life balanced. That's the other last thing I would say is don't go into the, for too long, have your hair, like, and then just like, I got to write my book. I can't eat,
Give yourself a break every now and then too. Yes.
Break and just trust that, there's, when you get involved with publishers, they'll give you deadlines, but get your own pace and rhythm so that you enjoy your life. It's part of your life.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important. You want to write your book. Don't kill yourself over it, give yourself that break, make sure your mind is refreshed because, one, it's for your own health, and two, that's the only way that your content is going to really be fresh for others too. The most creative and inspirational things that you might be able to put out might not happen after you've already been working at it for 6 hours. So
right.
It's important, that balance. Yeah. And I mean, given that in mind, take a look at his app, his books. It gives you so many tips for how to do that. So there you have it, everybody. I mean, here we are. We've had an enlightening conversation today with Loch Kelly. His approach to effortless mindfulness, it's fresh. It's a new perspective on consciousness, on personal transformation. And to all of our listeners, whether you're struggling with daily stress or seeking deeper insights spiritually, or even for your business or your writing, his methods of small glimpses really give practical tools for accessing inner peace, awareness. So again, learn more by going to lochkelly.org. And if this has also sparked inspiration for yourself to start writing today, Authors on Mission offers you so many different resources as well. Locke mentioned the importance of having a team by your side. And, that's what we are here. We can offer you publishing services, editing, angel writing, whatever you might need, even marketing. We're here for you too. So check us out as well. Schedule a consultation today. And thank you again, Locke. It's been a pleasure. Remember, just as Locke teaches, the awakening we seek is already within us, waiting to be discovered. And until next time, everybody, keep writing, keep inspiring, and have an amazing day. Thank you so much, everybody.
As we close another inspiring episode, remember, every best-selling author was once just a person with a story to tell. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, inviting you to write the next chapter of your success story at authorsonmission.com. Your audience is waiting, your wisdom is ready, and your book is next.